Welcome back, fantasy football fans. This is, of course, Fantasy Football in 5 once again, but this time we are not on a podcast. We are coming back to the YouTube channel. For those of you that didn't hear or have not been following our podcast recently, so we just started out here on YouTube, and we are coming back after a little bit of a hiatus. Now that we've entered the podcasting world, we're going to be jumping in here doing a mock draft for it's going to be like a Scott Fish Bowl mock draft here with a couple of guys who made it into the Scott Fish Bowl. And I just wanted to introduce this situation exactly because this is kind of the first real video that we've done since we're going to be coming back to the YouTube interface and coming back onto the YouTube world, really, because we have been away for a little while now. We've done one or two videos over the last probably 2 years, Parker, I'd say. Yeah. And but other than that, we've really been focusing on the podcast. For those of you that don't know, obviously we have got a really nice situation going on with the podcast, and you need to go and listen if you haven't already. And if you guys are wondering where our plans are for the YouTube channel, we'll be talking a little bit about that later. But first things first, we're going to throw this thing over to Parker and let him introduce what this mock draft is all about.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Yeah, so I was approached by one of the current Scott Fish Bowl 11 members, and he's like, hey, we're looking for people to throw together for a mock draft. So I was like, yeah, why not? We aren't in Scott Fish Bowl ourselves, but maybe this will help jumpstart our run for next year. We are in the Warrior Bowl, the 2021 Warrior Bowl, sort of year 2 for that. So we're excited about that. It's another charity league overseas, actually. So hopefully we'll have a great time there. Hopefully win a little bit of fantasy football competitions against some pretty good opponents. So this mock draft is about to begin any moment now, and I'll switch screens to when it does. But Taylor, we are drafting in a 12-team Superflex tight end premium league. Now, can you explain to us what the Superflex is?
So obviously the Superflex position is kind of a little bit of a twist on the flex position that we talk a lot about on our podcast. So the Superflex position, you can actually start a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, any of the above in that spot throughout the entire season. So you could have 2 quarterbacks starting, and you can really rack up a lot of points by doing so. And that's what most people do, is they start a quarterback in that position. Unless they have a really deep team, they normally go with a quarterback there because they just score more points overall. So that's probably what we're going to do here, and that is what the Superflex is. It's kind of a little bit of a twist on the normal flex position.
Yeah, so the tight end premium, however, it's a completely different way to look at the tight end position. So as opposed to regular PPR scoring, which is usually either half PPR for 0.5 points per reception, or standard PPR, which is 1 point per reception, tight end premium gives the tight ends a little bit of an advantage per se. You are more inclined to draft them at a higher price. So what that means is that at every catch they get, it's 1.5 points towards their total. So it's really an interesting concept, the tight end premium. This is something that Taylor and I haven't really done a whole lot of yet. We could introduce something like this in our listener league. We are looking to make maybe some changes to our league this year just to spice things up a little bit. But when you see tight end premium leagues, Taylor, what's your go-to thought?
When it comes to tight end premium, I think that it almost is like a compensation for the fact that the tight end position is so bad. And that's like the way I see it, is it really doesn't make the tight ends any better than the receivers because the tight end position is so bad, especially recently. So when it comes to that, the only thing that it really changes is in terms of those top couple of tight ends. It really puts an emphasis on those guys now because they get an extra half point. Think of the, Travis Kelce's, George Kittle's, the focal points of those offenses. They will probably be able to score a lot of points.
Right. So the draft has begun, and we started off hot with McCaffrey and Dalvin Cook. We're drafting from the 7th spot today. It's about half humans, half CPU right now, which is fine. It makes the process a little quicker, which is nice because I know Taylor and I right now we are drafting a dynasty league that's 8 hours per pick, which is kind of cumbersome. But It's all for fun. So we started off with McCaffrey, which should be the first pick in any draft. Taylor, can you make a case for anybody else?
Honestly, I don't think so, just because of the fact that, especially in PPR leagues, McCaffrey is such a step above everyone else. The only situation is when you think about the injuries. That's the one thing that probably concerns some people, is because he is a little more injury prone than some of these other guys. But you're going to have that chance for injury with every single player who plays in the NFL. It's just part of the game. So I think there's really no one else who should be taken at 1.
Right, Taylor. So we are on the clock right now. Nick Chubb and Kamara were just taken at 1-5 and 1-6. So running back's probably the way to go, right?
Yeah, running back is most likely the situation. We can always look at the, obviously, wide receivers and tight ends, but in my opinion, running back is so much of a need in that first round. It's not even really a huge look at other positions. You always want to check, though. So, we're probably going to check out the wide receivers, see what we think. But right now, obviously, we got Jonathan Taylor as the top running back available. Zeke is there as well, but we don't really like Zeke, especially this year.
Let's remember, it is Superflex.
It is a super flex, so we could grab a quarterback here in the first round, which is something we don't normally do.
Well, I was expecting Mahomes to go off the board already, being this a Superflex league. Do you want to entertain that?
It's something we've never done before, and since it is just a mock, I think that it would be fun to see, try different strategies. That's something that we here at Fantasy Football in 5 love to do, is try out different strategies throughout the season, for one simple reason, that when draft day comes, if you're put in any situation, you'll have a little bit of knowledge behind each situation. So I say, why not go ahead and snag a quarterback, something we never do here at Fantasy Football in 5 in the first round, but we're going to go against what we've always said.
Yeah, the Superflex adds so much value to the quarterback position, and Mahomes being on the board still is kind of crazy to me. So maybe we'll set a new trend here, but we're going to go Mahomes. His counterpart, Tyreek Hill, follows at 1-8. So the first quarterback and receiver consecutively taken off the board.
There is one thing that concerns me here, though, is what are we going to do at running back now? Because it's such a tough position when it comes to getting guys who are lead backs on their team. So why don't you go ahead and preview what the running back situation looks like right here. So obviously we got Jonathan Taylor at the top. Zeke is still here. Aaron Jones is available, and Austin Eckler. I do like Austin Eckler. I know he had some injury issues, obviously, last year, but he is still one of, if not the premier pass-catching running back in the NFL.
Yeah, I am in love with the Chargers offense this year. I think they can put up some really exceptional numbers. We've seen more running backs go off the board here. So I'm not sure if everybody is aware that this is a Superflex league or not.
Maybe they see the same situation that we do when it comes to running back, is it's so important to get a running back early, because there's there's such a drop off when it comes to the running back position.
All right, so we're making the snake back around here.
Two tight ends from the one team. That is interesting.
Given it is tight end premium, they may be more inclined to that. But I don't know if the tight end premium is specifically for the tight end spot, or if it can be applied to the regular flex position as well, given they are listed as a tight end.
I think it's just as they're listed as a tight end, they get the extra added boost. So we just saw 2 receivers go off the board, 2 of the biggest receivers in the NFL right now, Devonte Adams and DeAndre Hopkins. Right. We're on the clock. What are we thinking right here, Parker?
I think we have to go running back.
I agree. Running back is a must, I think. I know that there are some good receivers still on the board, because there are only 3 of them got taken. But if you go with a running back here, that kind of solidifies you have at least one guy that you can count on.
Yes.
So the question is, where are we going? We got a lot of young guys here: Cam Akers, Antonio Gibson, and Najee Harris. A lot of young guys here.
It's really tough because there's no workhorse running back in the NFL anymore. If you want to make an assumption for any of these guys, it's going to be Najee Harris. But that LA offense gives me a lot of hope for what Cam Akers can do this season. And I like Akers. I'm not a big Joe Mixon fan. We got burnt on him last year. Taylor, I know you're kind of hesitant on him.
Yeah, not a huge Mixon fan. Until I actually see him do it, I want to be a little hesitant because Joe Mixon, we've got a lot of hype from him year in and year out, and it just never has gotten up to that point. So I want to see him come through one of these seasons before I go and draft him highly in the first or second round.
So I'm leaning Cam Akers or Najee Harris here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I don't know. Najee Harris, he really has no competition there, but that Steelers offensive line has gotten a lot worse, especially recently with the loss of David DeCastro.
Yeah, that worries me a little bit. And Akers and Harris, I think Harris is actually a little bit better at the receiving game, but there is more receiving competition behind him. Darrell Henderson really can't catch the football, and they lost Malcolm Brown.
Yeah, that's true. So it's really a coin flip here. I'm going to let you go and make the decision here because I am going to probably next coin flip. I call it. All right.
All right. Well, I'm probably going to steer away from the hometown hit here. I'm a Steelers guy, but I'm going to go with Cam Akers here.
All right. We get another receiver here off the board, the fourth one, which is kind of shocking considering we're almost through the second round and only 4 receivers have gone off the board. It's kind of crazy to me because receivers, especially recently, I've seen in PPR leagues, you get a lot of them in the first round for normally. Yeah, at least the latter half of the first round.
I think the Superflex kind of cancels that out, though.
Yeah, that is true, but I'm just kind of shocked that only one team went and
Yeah.
All right, good choice there. The crowd loves it, Parker. Great choice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, crowd. So we just saw our third tight end, Mark Andrews, go off the board. I hate Mark Andrews. So, okay. His ADP bothers me so much. So here, Taylor, I'm not sure if you just saw, but the Scott Fish Bowl is famous for its third round reversal. So what this means is that instead of snaking back for the team 1 to get the first pick in the third round, it actually goes back to team 12 here. So they are on the clock right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting twist. I kind of like it though, just because it adds a little bit of intrigue because that you have that number 1 player if you got the first pick. So you're already ahead of the game no matter what. So then it's a situation where how are the other teams going to catch up? So I kind of like this little reversal because it puts a little bit more of an emphasis on, having a later pick.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm interested to see where he goes. Do you think he goes with the third tight end?
That would be hilarious because, he could fill up all of his flex spots with tight ends.
Yeah, that's an interesting strategy. But
wow.
So you went with Ryan Tannehill buying into the Tannehill hype with Julio Jones there now. Tannehill, the third quarterback taken off the board in a Superflex league.
That is mind-boggling to me. I'm actually going to let you talk about this real quick. I'm going to grab a drink and I'll be right back.
All righty. Well, usually Ryan Tannehill is not one of the first in even 7 or 8 quarterbacks taken off the board, but Tannehill has consistently finished with really elite numbers. So it's really interesting to see what's going to happen here with Tannehill and that team. There's no connection. We're on the clock now. So there's a lot of places we can go here. There's a great amount of running backs still available. We could start hot with receiver with Michael Thomas. There's a lot of routes to go. I'm going to sort of wait till Taylor comes back. So Taylor, what are you thinking here?
All right. Looking here, I want to see what the running back position has because if we can get another top-notch running back, I think that might be the way we go. And
it doesn't appear. Go ahead.
There is a guy that I have recently had rising in my rankings, and that is a running back, young guy, Deandre Swift. What do you think?
I'm trying to come around on him, and I'm not biased for or against, but it's really I'm just having a tough time predicting what he's going to do this season.
Here's my theory.
It's bad, but the offensive line's good.
The offensive line is decent. And then on top of that, the fact that Jared Goff has no one else to throw the ball to. He's got TJ Hawkinson and nobody.
Lots
Okay.
of vacated targets in that.
And who's going to eat those targets up is going to be the man coming out of the backfield, okay, who has some athletic abilities and can catch the football pretty well, Deandre Swift. I think that should be where we go. I know there are some top-notch receivers available, but I don't think that we're going to have a better situation at running back later.
Yeah, I agree. The running back hill is a steep hill to climb. And with the amount of running backs that have gone off the board already, we might be looking at a guy like, I don't know, Chase Edmonds next. So I'm on board for Deandre Swift here, Taylor. We're going to draft 2 sophomore running backs in a row.
We don't believe in the sophomore slump here at Fantasy Football in 5.
No. So, well, I think we're trying to play to our draft mates here as well, given the fact that it's Superflex. Not a lot of quarterbacks are going off the board.
Not a lot of quarterbacks, but I think that is actually going to play in our favor long run.
I think so too, because Kyler Murray was there, and Kyler Murray is my QB. He's my QB2 this season.
I love Kyler. I was the one who was big on him heading into this offseason. I told you about it, Parker. I love that Arizona offense this year. I think that Arizona team as a whole is going to surprise some people.
There are 2 quarterbacks who I would die to have. One is Kyler. The other is Justin Herbert. And I know I'm going to convince you to come around on Herbert.
See, I love Herbert. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. The thing that concerns me a little bit is just the fact that he's got Keenan Allen. He still has Mike Williams, which so. The offensive line did get a little bit better, which is helpful. Actually, you know what? I'm sold. Because the more I think about it, the big thing that hurt him last year was the fact that the offensive line was so bad. And I think that
Austin Eckler was out for quite a bit.
Yes, and the fact that the offensive line has been improved immensely, and then on top of that, they got one of the best pass-catching running backs. He's a perfect dump-off option if Justin Herbert actually needs to get out of trouble, you know?
Yeah. Well, he's right around the same area as Lamar. Obviously, Lamar has that rushing floor that'll throw him up my rankings in terms of overall expected points. But we're here right now with the host of the draft, 411 Robbie, Dynasty 411. He's taken Derrick Henry and Justin Jefferson, 2 elite picks with his first couple of selections here. Any intuition as to where he might go?
If I had to take a guess, I think he's trying to decide if he wants to take a quarterback here or another running back. Okay. So if I had to take a guess, that's just what I'm thinking, because right now he's got Derrick Henry. He's got the one, but he needs another running back. And I think that he's probably deciding between those two, because you go with a quarterback here, get a top-notch guy like a Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson or something like that, and then you're set. He goes receiver.
T. Higgins, actually.
Young guy.
A lot of receivers starting to go now.
Over Michael Thomas. Wow.
It might be time for when our pick comes back around to start looking at receiver.
Oh, definitely. It's now that we have our top 2 running backs, receiver is the way to go. I love some Allen Robinson. He's so consistent every single week, every single season, no matter who is throwing him the football.
Yep. And Allen Robinson is my favorite wide receiver in the league.
But outside of Allen Robinson, who will probably be gone by the time we make a selection, we got to look at what else is available. Can we move over to the receiver page?
Yes. So it's like Hawkinson and Mike Evans, Kyle Pitts, and Amari Cooper just went. So we are on the board, and Allen Robinson is still available.
Allen Robinson, that is intriguing. And then what's below CeeDee Lamb there? Because we got some big names with Julio and Chris Godwin, obviously. And I'm not a huge fan of some of these other guys. At least not for this pick.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I think it's between, honestly, Allen Robinson and Julio, in my opinion.
Right. I I think Robinson is going to get a lot of help from Darnell Mooney, whatever his name is.
It's Darnell, but
that and Julio, albeit a great receiver, his touchdown floor is so low compared to Allen Robinson's. Julio doesn't score touchdowns.
He didn't score touchdowns in Atlanta, but now that he actually has for the first time in his career since Roddy White was there, he has an actual receiver who is a big receiver opposite of him.
Okay, I was about to say, where are you going with that? Because Calvin Ridley is a great receiver, but big bodied, I get it.
Yes.
So
I think that now he finally has someone else who's going to pull coverage in the red zone. So I don't know. Julio might be scoring some touchdowns for the first time since his first couple of seasons in the NFL.
It is a run-heavy offense, too. Derrick Henry rushed for 2,000 last year.
That's true, but look at how many touchdowns that Ryan Tannehill threw for. I don't know.
It's your coin flip now.
It is my coin flip. So the one thing that concerns me is Allen Robinson. He's got probably Justin Fields, who will be starting at some point this season, and you just don't know when. Yep. The question is, in the meantime, will he score points? That's what concerns me.
I think he's shown that he can with any quarterback, but
I think you're right, and I think that he's pretty much the man out there in Chicago. So I'm going to go with Allen Robinson over Julio Jones.
All right. So through 4 picks, our team is looking like Pat Mahomes, Cam Akers, Deandre Swift, and Allen Robinson. I think we're in a pretty good place right here. Maybe we look at maybe a second quarterback or perhaps tight end, since it's a tight end premium league.
I don't like the tight ends that are available. I don't think that's the way to go. Even though it's a tight end premium, they don't score enough points, even with the extra half point per reception.
Yep.
It's just not enough. So I think that we go either receiver here or quarterback. That's probably where we go. Maybe running back, as we could throw them in the flex as well.
Yeah, there are 3 flex spots. This is, I believe, a 22-round draft. We probably won't get through all of them on this live stream, but enough to fill out our roster so far. We see that Kyler Murray was just taken. CeeDee Lamb finished out the 4th round. So looks like this guy Goat Rush is going with 0 running back. Taylor, is that a viable strategy in today's NFL?
No, it's just not, simply for the fact that we talked about it on one of our most recent podcasts, the ADP MVP podcast, believe it or not. We were talking all about ADPs and how that factors into the way that you should be drafting your teams. And one of the things we found out is that when looking at the stats over the last 5 seasons, the running back 1 versus running back 10, there's such a large margin, especially in PPR standards, in terms of the points that are scored from even the 10th best running back on the season to the number 1. It is such a huge gap. It's not even close. It is almost 2 times what every other position is in terms of the points. So that's one thing that really separates the running back spot.
So, Taylor, we're back on the board here. A couple of receivers go ahead of us. DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, just to name a couple. So we're in a similar spot here. We have some elite quarterbacks on the board still. And we also have a decent crop of running backs. But I'm not sold on a running back right now either.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm sold on getting a running back here because a lot of these guys are in split back systems. So I think that wide receiver or quarterback is the way to go. The question is, what are the top receivers available, and do we like any of them?
So we have to keep in mind that this is redraft. So we just have them on this team, and then after the season's over, never again until we draft the following year. There's a lot to like here.
I like Adam Thielen. So here's why, because now that everyone knows about Justin Jefferson, everyone's talking Justin Jefferson up. He's going to have a great season. He probably will have a pretty good season. But I think Adam Thielen is going to resurge this year because now that he has someone who is going to pull coverage, much like Stephon Diggs used to when he was there, he's not going to be the only threat now.
I think it's almost a better value to get to get Adam Thielen in the 4th or 5th than it is to get Justin Jefferson in the 2nd.
I agree. That is what I've been saying right along. I think that is the value when it comes to Minnesota receivers this year. But then look at the quarterbacks available. Would it be worth it to grab one of those and put them in the Superflex to get that extra added point value? What do you think, Parker?
Lamar really intrigues me here, but I think if we waited a little bit, I mean, hey, maybe they could be their next round still too. Herbert potentially. I really like Matt Stafford and Joe Burrow this year.
I think that we go receiver then.
Yep. So let's take a look at receiver.
So I like Adam Thielen, obviously. That's my pick.
I'm a Deontay Johnson kind of guy here, but I think you're right with what you're saying. I think that the price is right for Thielen right now. And hey, he's never done us any wrong.
That's for sure. He's always been really well on every team that he's been on for us.
All right, so we're going to grab Adam Thielen as our second NFC North receiver, actually.
NFC North is the majority of our team, believe it or not. Deandre Swift coming in there from the Lions as well.
Right. So pulling a lot of talent from that division, I guess. But in the meantime, we have a lot to look forward to for our next pick because there's still plenty of talent at the quarterback position for that Superflex. Tight end, we are probably still going to end up waiting. This guy drafted Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts, which is kind of insane.
Yeah, I think that, believe it or not, I think Kyle Pitts was the better pick over Mark Andrews.
I agree.
I think that Kyle Pitts is probably going to score more points than Mark Andrews for this upcoming season, simply for the fact that now there's actual receivers for Lamar to throw to, that is going to hurt Mark Andrews' stock.
I have never been a big fan of Mark Andrews for where he's being drafted. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's worth a top 4 round pick. I don't think he's worth it.
Yeah, and then on top of the fact that, like you always alluded to, it's a running situation, a running team out there with Lamar Jackson and company, and so because of that, I think that it hurts Mark Andrews' stock, but he's been able to do okay with that, given the fact that he's one of the only receiving targets, or was the last couple of seasons, whereas now they're finally starting to add talent at the receiver position. And so Mark Andrews, I think his stock is going to slowly decrease year in and year out, kind of like the Zach Ertz effect, where he just kind of fizzled away to nothingness.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I would rather have 7 other tight ends other than Mark Andrews. So
yeah, I can list at least 5 or 6 that I'd have over him, simply for the fact that I don't like his situation more than anything. But moving on from that situation, we have actually the same team. They went out and drafted a quarterback here with Dak Prescott. What are your thoughts on Dak this year? Because I'm very curious. A lot of people are either super, super high on him or they absolutely hate him. I want to know, what are your thoughts on Dak Prescott for this upcoming season? Everyone thought that he was going to break some huge records last year, got hurt. Do you think he can get back on pace once again this season?
I don't think the pace will be there. I still think he's going to have a successful season, though. I don't see, he was on pace for 5,400 yards or something ridiculous like that. And now, those first couple of games, he faced horrible pass defenses. The Seahawks, the Falcons, the Browns at that point in the season, just to name a couple. So Prescott was putting up Hall of Fame type numbers against varsity defenses.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that was lost throughout the beginning half of last season when everyone was talking about Dak Prescott, is the numbers he was putting up were against some of the NFL worst defenses in NFL history, okay, in terms of passing defenses. I believe through the first half of the season, the Seahawks and the Falcons both were setting records for how bad they were in terms of pass defense.
Yep. So a couple quarterbacks went. We had Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert go. My man Herbert's gone, so that kind of sucks. But maybe that takes us a different direction for this round.
It could, but I still like a couple of the guys that are on the board right there. We got Russell Wilson, MVP Aaron Rodgers from last year, Matt Stafford, who I think is going to have a resurgence out there in LA. You got the running ability of Jalen Hurts. I like some of the quarterbacks that are still there. Curious what the wide receiver situation looks like, though.
We can take a look. So we have a couple of questionable players, but whatever. We have Brandon Ayuk, Odell Beckham, Cortland Sutton, Chase Claypool, DJ Chark, and Juju, to name a couple.
Yeah, one of those guys that I think is going to be lost this upcoming fantasy season, and a guy that no one's going to really remember because he was simply got injured in the first quarter of last season, and that is Cortland Sutton, a player who I loved last year. I drafted on a lot of my teams, and I got killed when he went down with that injury. But I think he could have the season that I was expecting this year. I really do. And then at a discounted price as well, because no one really remembers the fact that Cortland Sutton was a monster before he got hurt.
Yes, his 2019 campaign was fantastic, double-digit touchdowns even. So we're at a point now, do we go quarterback or do we go receiver? Because quarterbacks, we have Russell Wilson, Rodgers, Hurts, Stafford, Burrow is the top 5. At receiver, Brandon Ayuk, Odell Beckham, who I don't want, Cortland Sutton, DJ Chark, and Juju.
I think that it's really a coin flip here, but at receiver, I would either go with Cortland Sutton or Brandon Ayuk here. And then at the quarterback position, obviously you have 2 MVPs in Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers at the top of the list, who I like a lot.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of fantastic things about the new offense in Seattle. Not in terms of like the new players, but just like the offensive coordinator is a new guy, apparently bringing a lot of firepower to that team. So Wilson might not be a bad play here.
And I think that they're also going to really give him an extra added look, because remember what you said about angry quarterbacks and how they play the best. And you said that last year
about Rodgers. Yeah.
I think Russell Wilson's angry, and I think he's going to play like a man on fire this upcoming season. So I want Russell Wilson.
I like it. We drafted Russ in our home league last year, and he was just fantastic for us the entire season.
All right, so we've got our Superflex position nailed down. There's only one Superflex in this league, if I'm not mistaken.
1 Superflex, 3 regular flex.
So now that we've got those the 2 quarterback situation figured out, the question is, how do we fill out our flex position? Now, Parker, what is the prime positional player to put in the flex? Is it a wide receiver? Is it a tight end? Is it a running back, and why?
So you have the choices between wide receiver, running back, and tight end. Tight end, I think, is the furthest from correct answer. Tight ends, especially nowadays, are not good. It is a crapshoot, to say the least. So there's a lot of inconsistency at that position, so it's safest to stray away. But the argument, I think, is more 50-50 than we've previously looked at it. Yes, if it's PPR, the wide receiver is pretty much the way to go. But there are so many pass-catching backs in the NFL now who, if they have that dual capability of, okay, I can run the ball first and second down, catch the ball on third down, I think they're starting to get really, really valuable here.
I agree. I think that something changed over the last season or two when it comes to the PPR running backs, because I really think that when it comes to it, the running backs, especially like the Christian McCaffreys, and Christian McCaffrey is a prime example. Okay. And there are poor man's Christian McCaffreys that still score a lot of fantasy points simply because they catch passes out of the backfield and run for 2 or 3 yards. Okay. It may not put up a lot of fantasy points for those 2 or 3 yards, that's a whole point. That's essentially the equivalency of having Derrick Henry run for 10 yards by them just catching that one pass. And so that to me, I think is where you get a lot of these pass catching running backs scoring a lot of points. So I do believe that it is more 50-50 than it has ever been before.
Yeah, I really like leagues now that are transitioning to more than one flex, because I think it's such a unique position. You know, we talk about it every week during our flex specs segment on the podcast, and there are so many avenues you can go down. Why not test and see what works? And that's what you do with mock drafts. You're testing to see what strategy works best.
All right. Speaking of strategy here, I think that we both can agree we need to either go with a wide receiver or a running back here to start filling those flex. Let's preview those two positions and see what's on the board.
All right. So we'll start with running back as we see them starting to fly off the board right here. I hope that Javonte Williams is available. He is my second favorite rookie running back behind Najee Harris. And it's for the simple fact of the matter that I don't believe in Melvin Gordon. Do you, Taylor?
I've never believed in Melvin Gordon. But not only that, the thing that concerns me, though, when it comes to Javonte Williams is it is a split back system. And I don't think they're going to just be like, okay, Melvin Gordon, we're paying you oodles of money to sit here and do nothing. So that concerns me a little bit. So that's one thing that really jumps out at me when I think about Javonte Williams and a lot of these running backs who are in these split back systems.
So we're on the clock here. Juju and Cortland Sutton just went before us.
I wish Cortland Sutton would have came and fallen to us. I would have been a steal in my opinion. But what else is available at the wide receiver?
So we have Odell, DJ Chark, Deebo Samuel, Robbie Anderson, Will Fuller, Devonta Smith as the top few guys.
All right. What are the guys that are jumping out at you right now, Parker? Because for me, one person who I think could have a decent season, he started out pretty good last year, kind of faded towards the end of the year. DJ Chark, actually, because he's now has a real quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence knows talent. He knows talent. When he finds a good receiver, he throws him the football. And I think that he's going to find a good receiver in DJ Chark, who's probably going to be one of, if not the best receivers on that team.
Yeah, I agree. Chark is massive. He's like 6'4", and
he's a large human.
He's the most proven receiver on the team. So if he can put up numbers with Gardner Minshew, I think he can put up numbers with Trevor Lawrence here. But the question is, Taylor, I guess we only have two receivers. So, but we know that the receiver pool is so deep in talent as well.
So are you suggesting we go with our running back here?
We have a minute and 10 seconds to decide. So the only running backs that jump out to me right now are Javonte Williams and further down the list, James Conner.
I like James Conner this year.
There's Michael Carter down there as well.
I think it's up to you.
A tough spot. A lot of these teams in front of us went receiver the last round, so I would anticipate they might start going running back. So maybe we pick a running back here.
That's a good way to look at it, especially considering the last couple of rounds, the entire last two teams, I would say, haven't picked a single running back. If I saw that correctly. So I think that running back is probably going to be flying off the board soon. So let's snag one. So if nothing else, we can play him in the flex if we need to, but also we have him for the backup when the bye weeks roll around.
All right. I'm on board for Javonte Williams. What about you? I believe in
That's fine. That's fine. Let's go with Javonte Williams. If you believe in him, I'll back you up.
All right. He led the NCAA last year, Division I, in broken tackles. And behind a Denver offensive line, it's okay at best. It's very middle of the road NFL line. But I think that offense has so much potential.
They just need to find a quarterback. And I think that now that they have Teddy B, I really think that Teddy B is going to help them. And I think that he's going to help that offense as a whole. Believe it or not, I really do. I know that I said don't give up on Drew Lock yet, and I still believe that there's a chance Drew Lock plays well at some point. I just don't know if it's necessarily this year now that they have a possible answer with Teddy B for this season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting competition there. The Broncos are devoted for some reason. They're devoted to Drew Lock, but he's not the answer. So it's a tough 50-50 thing. Who do you see starting more games, Bridgewater or Lock?
I actually believe that I think Bridgewater is going to end up starting more games this upcoming season simply for the fact that they're going to want to win games. And I think Bridgewater gives them the best chance to win games right now. And I really do think that at the end of the day, if you're just trying to win games, look at like Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? Fitz magic there with Miami. When they just needed to win football games and they knew at the end of the day that's all they were trying to do, who did they put in? They went to the veteran, the guy who they knew could do it. So that is what I think is going to end up happening this year.
Right on. So Taylor, my intuition was correct. Look at the running backs going in those spots now.
Yes, good pickup there with the outlook on the upcoming teams. Also, yes, I agree. I think it is a solid team so far. Not going to lie.
So here's a situation we're at. 2 tight ends just went, 3 tight ends. We're on the board now. We have yet to pick a tight end in a tight end premium league. Take a look at them.
Ooh, 2 guys that jump out at me. Logan Thomas and Robert Tanyan. Love them. I love them both.
Okay, so build a case for both of them. I'll give you 30 seconds for each, and then we'll see where we go from there. So 30 seconds, start with Logan Thomas.
Logan Thomas. He's got Fitz magic. There you go. There's my case. Okay. Case closed. Going on to Robert Tanyan. He's got the reigning MVP, and also he had a 99% catch rate last year. That means that out of all of the targets that he was targeted last season, there was one that he did not catch. That is insane. That is just mind-boggling, okay? That means every ball that was thrown at him, he caught the football. Not only whether it was accurate or not, he caught it. And so I think right there, that is a great connection that Aaron Rodgers has with Robert Tanyan. And we haven't seen a connection like that from Aaron Rodgers to a tight end since here's a
Jermichael Finley.
There it is. Jermichael Finley. Trivia for you. Jermichael Finley was the last Packers tight end in many, many seasons. And look at the numbers that Jermichael Finley used to put up with him. I think that Robert Tanyan is the next Jermichael Finley.
Ooh. All right. 85 turning in strong performance last year, Robert Tanyan. So, Taylor, I know you and I both love Fitz here. Are you sworn to the fact that Aaron Rodgers will be a Packer this season?
I am.
Okay. And why?
They're going to let him go. Okay. That's as simple as that. And Aaron Rodgers is not going to not play. He's not going to sit out the season. Okay. Because it's one of the last seasons he really has in terms of look at how old he is. Okay. He's not getting any younger by any means. And who knows if next season, if he's still going to be in the top-notch shape that it was last year, you know? Yep. So I think that he's smart enough to know he needs to play. That's why he's going to end up showing up to when it comes down to it. So I think that he will be the Packers quarterback this season. For the future, maybe not.
All right, so we're going to go with Tanyan here. I think that's what I'm hearing, right, Taylor?
Yes.
All right. Here we go. Robert Tanyan, our first tight end off the board at the 8-7. Not a bad pick by any means for a guy who played exceptionally well last year. Let's just take a look at his numbers. In 2020, he put up monstrous points. 3rd in standard scoring, 4th in PPR, And he had weeks where he just scored tons of points.
He was a touchdown machine last year for the Packers. And when no one else was scoring for them, Robert Tanyan single-handedly won them at least one football game last year. I think if I remember correctly, he had 3 or 4 touchdowns in a single week, which
he did.
Mind-boggling.
I'm trying to find that, but at any rate, Robert Tanyan was really exceptional last year.
All right, and there goes Logan Thomas 2 picks later.
Yep, that was his first tight end as well. He's drafting very similar to us, which is interesting. I like what this guy's putting together so far.
He got Cortland Sutton. That is the guy who got Cortland Sutton, and I'm a big fan of him.
Let's take a look at the overall draft board so far. I'm going to make this big here, Taylor. Oops, I hit the wrong button, of course.
You sounded a little old there, Parker.
I know. So here we go. This is the big board right now. What's standing out to you, good or bad?
What stands out to me is team number 10. They have drafted a bazillion running backs and wide receivers, and that is it.
Yes. Well, that is a computer team, but I don't think that changes the fact.
No, I've never seen a computer team do that. That's what's odd to me. So, interesting strategy. That's a literal 0 quarterback tight end strategy. But
I don't mind 0 tight end, but
yeah, interesting strategy, especially in a Superflex league. And then on top of that, we see another team over there in team number 4 that doesn't have a quarterback. It seems like quarterback is not valued by the computer.
No, and for what reason? We don't know. But we are back on the clock. So, I think receiver here.
You should zoom back out.
Oh, yes. My bad. There we go. So we're at receiver right here. Is anything standing out to you? Because we need one. We only have 2 right now.
All right, scroll back up to the top here. I love that individual right there at the very top. All right, and let me tell you why. Okay, love myself some Scary Terry out there in Washington. But what I love even more is the fact that Curtis Samuel is one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL, both in his running ability and his pass catching ability. And then on top of that, Ron Rivera knows that that is a talented player. Ron Rivera coached him since he got drafted, okay, until last season. And then you turn around and he brings him back onto his team. Do you think he would let that happen if he didn't believe in that player and he wasn't going to give that player a lot of looks? And all of a sudden, who is the number 2 target out there outside of Scary Terry? It is going to be Curtis Samuel, who will be playing in the slot. And we know that Ryan Fitzpatrick loves to give his receivers chances, and I think Curtis Samuel is going to take advantage of those chances. And when the offensive line falls apart and that pocket starts collapsing, who's going to get those balls? It's going to be Curtis Samuel, because he's going to be running those short, quick routes. And I think that's exactly why we need to get him on our team.
I think Curtis Samuel is sort of a younger version of Jarvis Landry. Thoughts?
That's an interesting comparison. What he kind of reminds me of is think of I know this is a little off, but Cole Beasley, the slot machine that Cole Beasley was for the majority of his career. I think that's kind of like Curtis Samuel, but a more athletic Cole Beasley. Right. That's what he is.
Well, I'm going to grab Samuel here and we continue talking about him.
James Conner goes off the board. I like him.
Yeah, I like Conner too. As a Steelers fan, I was glad that he left, but he landed in a fantastic spot. One of the best landing spots of a free agent that I've seen leave Pittsburgh in quite some time. So he's going to be competing with Chase Edmonds out there. But the moral of the story of what I'm hearing is that James Conner is the clear-cut starter out there.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be the man out there in terms of getting just the regular running. I think that Chase Edmonds is going to be the pass catching back for sure, like the James White of his team.
Yep.
But I think that when it comes down to it, goal line, all the goal line carries goes to James Conner. I think that he's just the running back, the power back in that system.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I said earlier,
Michael Carter goes off the board there.
Like I said earlier on one of our podcasts, James Conner is the Thunder to what the Lightning is in Chase Edmonds. Whereas with Kenyon Drake, it was just lightning and lightning. And even more lightning with Kyler Murray. So, yeah, Taylor, you mentioned Michael Carter, one of our favorite rookie running backs off the board, 10-2.
I think Michael Carter has the chance to put up some of the best rookie numbers this season. And here's why. He is probably going to be one of the only rookie running backs to start the majority of the season for his team. I really believe that. I think Michael Carter at the end of the day is going to probably be the starting running back by week 2 or 3.
I agree. So, Taylor, we're on the clock here again, moving along at a steady pace. Here's our roster so far. I'll bring it up here. We have Pat Mahomes, Akers, and Swift at running back, Thielen, Robinson, Curtis Samuel at our 3 receiver spots, Robert Tanyan as our tight end, Javonte Williams starting in our first flex, and then Russell Wilson in our super flex.
All right, so what are we thinking here? Do we go receiver again? Do we go with a running back? What jumps out at you?
Well, I'm going to take a look at the running backs. Nothing wows me. I don't like what's going on at running back right here.
I don't think it's good value at this point. You got a much better value at the wide receiver position.
I agree. So we're looking at guys like Corey Davis, Michael Gallup, Devonte Parker.
I hate Michael Gallup. Okay.
Antonio Brown, Marvin Jones, Darnell Mooney. So these are the top guys here.
Out of the guys here, I really like Corey Davis this year because he's got a quarterback who is looking and searching for a target to rely on. And I think Corey Davis, they paid him a lot of money. They aren't going to pay him that sort of money and not have him start every single game on the outside for him as the number 1 receiver. So I think Corey Davis is a really good selection here because he's, at the end of the day, Zach Wilson's going to get him the football because Corey Davis really hasn't had a great quarterback outside of Ryan Tannehill the last couple of the season or two. Outside of that, Corey Davis has not been doing much in his career, and that's due to the fact that he doesn't have a quarterback. As soon as he got a quarterback, he played very well. So I think that now that he still has a quarterback in Zach Wilson, I think he's going to continue to play well.
I like Davis. They gave him 3 years, $37 million for something. But one guy who really intrigues me is actually Antonio Brown. Taylor, I hate beating a dead horse, but Antonio Brown's one of the most talented receivers I've ever seen. I think that Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay offense could be really good this year. Now, hear me out. He isn't a guy that I'm jumping off my seat to go draft. And I know you're annoyed with me right now. But I think Antonio Brown could be very valuable to whoever takes him. I am agreeing here, Corey Davis, but I like Antonio Brown this year.
Are you just saying that because you're sad because he left the Steelers in the fashion that he did? Is that what's happening right now? You're just sad because he played okay for another team last year.
No, good for him that he has a Super Bowl ring. It's one of the most up until last year, one of the most talented receivers to have not won a Super Bowl ring that I've seen play, at least. Larry Fitzgerald and Julio Jones were obviously up there as well.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, but that's a major disrespect to Larry Fitzgerald. Okay.
If there's any more, there are 2 people deserving of a ring in the NFL, and it's Fitz and Fitz. So.
Well, what I'm kind of curious because I mentioned I absolutely hate Gallup this year. What is your opinion?
He is the 3rd receiver in Dallas. He is the 3rd receiver. Let me put it this way. There is Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, 50 feet of crap, and Michael Gallup.
So let me put this into perspective. I drafted Michael Gallup last year in one of our leagues simply because he fell to me. And I didn't want to draft him, but it was just like he was there. He fell like 3 rounds. Okay.
At that point.
And so I was like, I guess I'll take him. And he annoyed me the entire season because he wasn't good enough to keep in my starting lineup, but he wasn't bad enough to where I could be like, I'm going to pull him. All right. So he just annoyed me. And I think that Michael Gallup has probably become one of the most annoying figures in the NFL to me because of that simple season that he had.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't even have him on my team, but I was annoyed because you were annoyed. So it was just really, really interesting what Michael Gallup did in absence of Dak Prescott. He sometimes he found a groove with Dalton, but other times it was non-existent.
Yeah, and I'm was a little disappointed, honestly, because Michael Gallup, even though Dak Prescott got hurt, before he got hurt, he really wasn't putting up a lot of points. Even though they were passing oodles and oodles downfield, he was not one of the guys who was catching a lot of those balls. He might have, 3 or 4 catches, but that was about it. And he wasn't scoring touchdowns. And he had 1 or 2 good weeks where he scored 30 fantasy points, and that's it.
Do you have him in your lineup then?
No, of course not.
So, Taylor, this draft, while it is going, it's on the docket for 22 rounds. The commish of this draft says that we're going to be going 16. So, basically, a full draft's worth and a redraft. It was just set up for the Scott Fishbowl type practice. So, that's where we're sitting right now. Still great value on the board across, the whole platform. So we are currently in search of one more flex position player to fill out our starters.
Let's go take a look at the tight end position. I'm kind of curious just to see what's available at this point. We have a couple of guys who really were hyped up the last few seasons in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. And I have an Ingram as well, actually, who just haven't really performed up to what everyone has expected.
Yeah, well, I think it's becoming a trend with young tight ends that they are expected to put up numbers like George Kittle and Travis Kelce and Darren Waller within their first couple of seasons, and that just doesn't happen anymore. The tight ends are not being targeted as much as they used to be.
And it's kind of a shame. The tight end it seems like it's becoming more and more like the new fullback of the NFL, where they aren't getting the love that all these other positions are. And I believe we are now on the clock here as Baker Mayfield just goes off the board.
Yep, that team's first quarterback is Baker in the 11. So we have some thinking to do. Tight end, he's the top couple guys.
Yeah.
But I'm not wowed.
Nope.
So running back, not much has changed so far. I know you like Philip Lindsay and J.D. McKissick.
Yeah, I think those guys could have some decent years this season for their respective teams. The question is, are they going to have the big enough season? I think Philip Lindsay could. I think Philip Lindsay has an opportunity to be the man out there in Houston because he's the youngest running back on the roster and has a good chance at performing well. What else do we have, though, at wide receiver?
So wide receiver is interesting because Marvin Jones is still available. Henry Ruggs, Nelson Aguilar, T.Y. Hilton, and Taylor, your favorite guy, Rashad Bateman.
Yes, I love Rashad Bateman. I can't say it enough, okay? I went to school with the guy. He is one of the most athletically gifted humans I've ever seen. And I think that Rashad Bateman is also one of the more intelligent receivers to be coming out of the last couple of draft classes. And intelligent just in terms of the way that he views the football field. He has great ability to get in and out of openings on the football field. He can see and read zone coverage really well, almost like a quarterback. And that's what I really like with Rashad Bateman, because if he can read it like the quarterback does, then he's going to know where he needs to be for the quarterback to get him the football. That's what I like about him. I think that he's also one of the most athletically gifted guys in terms of at the point of attack when the ball is coming in and it's going to be a one-on-one situation. I think Bateman can win those.
So who are you leaning towards here?
Well, I think that either we go Marvin Jones, Rashad Bateman, or Philip Lindsay. Those are the three guys that jump out at me. I like Marvin Jones because he's still a talented guy, has been.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think personally that if we go Marvin Jones here, I think one of the two guys might be available when we come back. I don't think Jones will be available though.
All right, let's go with Marvin Jones then. We talked about Trevor Lawrence finding his athletically gifted wide receivers, guys who can catch the football, and I think that obviously Marvin Jones is going to have a good year, just like DJ Chark. They're pretty similar, actually. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
My mic got muted. They're both big-bodied receivers that really can attack the football when they're throwing up balls. We saw last season when Kenny Golladay went down, Marvin Jones performed pretty well. He has over the last probably 5 or 6 seasons in the NFL, he's performed under the radar for the most part and pretty well for a lot of fantasy teams that we've actually had.
And he's really outperformed his ADP. Marvin Jones consistently is a much better fantasy player than what he is drafted to be. So he's a steal. He is the definition of steal. You look it up in a textbook and it says Marvin Jones.
So. Yeah, and I really like the fact that he is a touchdown machine. For some reason, no matter what team he goes to, when he was in Cincinnati, when he got moved to Detroit, every team that he's gone to, he for some reason has a knack at getting touchdowns. I don't know what it is. He may only catch three balls, but at least one of them is going to be a touchdown.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't know what it is about him. He's a great red zone threat, I guess, when it comes down to it.
Right on. And that's all that Trevor Lawrence is going to want, a reliable target in the red zone. So it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize Marvin Jones this season, given he has the most veteran presence probably on that entire offense. So Justin Fields was just taken at 11-9, and we're making our turn here. Gronk, Henderson finish at the 11th, and Aguilar and Tariq Cohen start the 12th.
Oh, my man is still there. Elijah Moore goes ahead of him, which is shocking to me.
Yep, so here we are. We are 2 picks away. So interested to see where this guy goes. Latavius Murray was just taken. Interesting.
Yeah, I think Latavius Murray's draft has just plummeted over the last season because really he had pretty good value when he first got to New Orleans the first season or two. And then when Alvin Kamara broke through, he became a non-factor.
Well, there goes Rashad Bateman. We're lucky this is a mock.
Hurt.
We got him in Dynasty in our Dynasty startup, so we're going to have him until he retires, essentially. But I know that, Taylor, when it comes time to draft our home league, we are going to get Rashad Bateman. So, because nobody else is going to know the secrets of Rashad Bateman. So, does this mean Philip Lindsay is the pick here?
Yeah, I think that he's right there at the top of the board. I think it's just a sign that we need to take him. And it really rounds out the running back position. He's a perfect fit because if you look at the running backs they have out there in Houston, so you got Philip Lindsay, you got an aging David Johnson, who really hasn't performed very well.
And Ingram.
And a Mark Ingram, who I don't know, is dead or something. I'm not sure what happened to him because he just fell off the face of the earth last season. And I mean, it wasn't even because he was hurt, I don't think. He just never got carries. And I think that says a lot considering they were willing to give Gus Edwards carries over him. I think that says everything you need to know about Mark Ingram for this upcoming season. And when it comes to that, so that really leaves Philip Lindsay and an aging David Johnson, who they brought in Philip Lindsay to essentially replace David Johnson, in my opinion. So Philip Lindsay is probably going to be the starter for the majority of the season, and he will be the guy out there in Houston.
Right on. So, Taylor, we're back on the board here. Well, Desean Watson is on the board, but
ooh, that is actually intriguing.
Do you think he's playing this season?
I do. It's as simple as that. Until I hear Deshaun Watson is not starting a football game, he is playing in my mind. I know you have this issue with Deshaun Watson's situation. And do you remember Tom Brady? You remember when way back when we drafted Tom Brady and we were like, no, he's good. And we're like, we're just going to take a chance. Okay. And this was back when Tom Brady, the whole deflate gate
when
stuff
he
was going on.
To be suspended.
Okay. And I told Parker, I was like, Parker, just take a flyer on him. Okay. Just do it. And we did. And it paid out perfectly because he never missed a game. Okay. Mm-hmm. So all I'm saying is remember that and make the right decision.
You know what? For kicks and giggles, let's go with Deshaun Watson here. Because, hey, it's a mock draft. So who really cares?
And I think that it really could benefit people who do take a flyer on him because you know how talented he is. Okay, so when he gets on the football field, he performs quite well. He goes for a lot of yards. He is going to find his touchdowns here or there. Yes, he's probably going to have some more interceptions this upcoming season than previous seasons, simply for the fact that the receiving talent isn't quite there anymore. But with that in mind, I still think that Deshaun Watson is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So, and he's got a good rushing ability.
Yeah, Watson, one of the more elusive quarterbacks in the league. And Taylor, I really hope that you are correct with this whole Deshaun Watson thing. I haven't heard Deshaun Watson's name in the sports news in like 3 months. What's happened? Do you have any insider info for me?
Yeah, I actually talked to Deshaun Watson yesterday.
Oh,
and no, but in all seriousness, I think that when it comes down to it, it's gone quiet because they're trying to figure out, what's going to happen essentially. And I think that when it gets closer to the season, you're going to hear the final things get told. Essentially, you're going to finally hear what happened, what is expected from Deshaun Watson, whether he's going to play, if he misses games, how many games, because that's the other thing. What people don't realize is, yeah, he might miss some games, but think about all these other situations. Okay. A lot of people are saying that, are comparing it to other situations that have happened in the NFL, domestic abuse and different things like that. And people only get, 1 game, 2 game suspensions. Okay. So even if he does get suspended, how long is it going to end up being for?
Right. So we'll come back to this in a minute. We are on the clock here again. Running back looking thin as ever. So let's see. If this is redraft, we've drafted 4 running backs. And maybe we just stay away from
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we're good at running back. 4 is plenty because for the most part, you're not going to probably find value at this point. Whereas you can probably find some value elsewhere at wide receiver, tight end, quarterback.
Yeah, let's take a look at tight end. Haven't visited that since the 8th round, and we're here in round 14. So I don't like Zach Ertz or Blake Jarwin. Adam Troutman really has me intrigued this season in New Orleans.
Okay, let me explain to those that are curious about Adam Troutman. I'm going to say one thing, and one thing that will explain everything to you, Parker. Jameis Winston. That's it. Okay. End of discussion.
You don't think Jameis Winston is capable of getting Adam Troutman's 75 targets?
Look at the tight ends that have succeeded when Jameis Winston was in Tampa Bay. Oh, that's right.
Was it a Jameis Winston thing, or was it a coaching thing?
Well, let's see. Jameis Winston leaves the building, and Gronk performs phenomenally well.
Gronk had Tom Brady throwing to him. Who'd you rather have, Tom Brady or Jameis Winston?
That's my point. It was the quarterback that. Okay.
Do you think Jameis Winston could have gotten Gronk the same amount of production?
No.
Maybe O.J. Howard just sucks. Cam Bright was good.
Cam Bright was okay.
All right. Well, if we're stuck here at tight end, maybe we come back to it in another round. But let's take a look at receiver here.
So a guy who
It's slim pickings right now.
A guy who I think is kind of forgotten is Russell Gage, the wide receiver from Atlanta. He's now doesn't have as much competition. I think he's going to get a lot more looks. I think he would be a decent stash on a lot of benches who could perform well if given the opportunity, because right now it is essentially Calvin Ridley and no one else.
Yeah, and I think they're going to start moving Kyle Pitts around. I saw a report today at a Falcons camp that was like, we're going to draft Kyle Pitts, or we drafted Kyle Pitts to utilize him to the best of his abilities. That may not even be at the natural tight end spot. Hayden Hurst could still have a good season.
Yeah, I think that we will probably see a lot of, well, think of Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce lines up as a receiver a decent amount, and he performs well because he's an athletically gifted tight end. I think that we're going to see a lot of that from Kyle Pitts, especially given the lack of talent at the receiver position. But because of this, I think Russell Gage is now solidified as the slot guy out there and probably will play outside occasionally.
Yeah, because they didn't draft a receiver.
They didn't draft a receiver, and they didn't sign a receiver.
So it's the Russell
other
Gage,
than Laquan Treadwell.
Well, Laquan Treadwell sucks. So
exactly.
We're here. Maybe we visit tight end again. We have Eric Ebron, Pat Freiermuth for the Steelers, Hayden Hurst, Anthony Fertzer down there for Tennessee.
Oh, dude, I see the next big thing, man.
Oh, we're here. Chris Herndon.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at his stats from last year.
Oh, God.
Tight end 36.
That's good.
Oh, he played one game then. Needless to say, he sucks. And, he's struggling to pick up the playbook.
Shocker.
Complete moron. Worst tight end I've ever seen. Go draft Tim Tebow instead, honestly.
Yeah, I would rather want Tim Tebow. Maybe he'll bring some Tebow magic. But honestly, I like actually one of these Pittsburgh tight ends. If it's only for this season, I think Eric Ebron's probably the move. But in Dynasty, obviously Freiermuth is the tight end you're going to want.
We snagged Freiermuth in our Dynasty startup. That was more my doing than anything because I'm a Steelers fan. But Freiermuth, his nickname at Penn State was Baby Gronk. You don't earn that title for fun. He's a great receiving threat. He knows how to block, and he's physically gifted as well. He's not as big as Gronk, but he makes up for it in many other aspects. So I think you're right, Taylor. I think don't even say it.
Yeah, I'm sure he does, Parker. All right. Well, we could go with Eric Ebron or Hayden Hurst here. You mentioned Hayden Hurst could still have a good season here with obviously Kyle Pitts probably moving in and out of the tight end spot on the offense.
Well, I got burned with Hayden Hurst a little bit last year. I want to experiment in other areas of the tight end position. And Ebron gets targets too. Ben can't throw the ball deep, so we'll go with Ebron here. Definitely had good stretches during the season. He provided a nice floor for tight ends last year, which is tough because the tight end position just was so inconsistent. So,
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Dawson Knox?
I can't say all the tools, but I don't think there's an excuse for him anymore.
I agree. I was waiting for him to break out, and it never seemed to happen.
No, and that's the thing. Josh Allen might be the second or third best quarterback in the league right now. And I understand that he has targets like Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders and Gabriel Davis and Cole Beasley. But Dawson Knox has the tools to become good. He doesn't get targeted, first of all. He finished actually worse last year than Chris Herndon. So maybe we should shit on him a little bit less. But Dawson Knox is a third-year guy now who apparently has spent a lot of time working on just some sort of relationship with Josh Allen on the football field. I think Knox is good, but maybe he's just on the wrong team. So, anyways, we're back on the board here. This is, I believe, our last round of the draft.
I think we go with wide receiver just because we love receive. Actually, are there kickers?
No,
Can we draft
no
a kicker?
No kickers, unfortunately, which
dang.
is kind of crappy if you ask me. Because Taylor, what did we say?
Kickers are people too, guys.
Amen.
Here at Fantasy Football in 5, kickers are people. We love kickers, okay? We believe in you guys. You need to stay in fantasy football because you're one of, if not the most important position in all of football.
Right on. So, well, Taylor, we could go receiver, finish out that. A big flyer receiver. Anything intrigue you anywhere?
Well, all right. Let's look at the receiver position here. Okay, and obviously one guy jumps out at me. Got Alan Lazard there. Okay, I think he's going to be healthy next season, obviously. And then another guy that jumps out at me. If you scroll down the list, let's keep going. Okay, yeah, another guy that jumps out at me is actually AJ Green out there in Arizona, just for the simple fact that I think he could have a slight resurgence now that he has probably the best receiver in football across from him in DeAndre Hopkins, and he's got a lot of young, speedy talent as well. So I think that they're going to have their hands full. Any defense will, with guarding this team and top of the running attack that they're going to have. So I think AJ Green's going to have an opportunity to win some one-on-ones this season and perform pretty well. So he wouldn't be a bad bench stash for a lot of different teams. And then other than that, though, obviously I mentioned I'm a big fan of I know you're a big fan of Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, I was until Julio got there. But I think even with Julio's injury proneness, Reynolds is not a bad pick late in drafts. But as further down the board, you can get a guy like Nico Collins, who I think could have a very good season. But not worth the pick right here. I think AJ Green, it'll be a fine selection right here. If anything were ever to happen to DeAndre Hopkins, I think Green could step up and be just fine. But we'll go with Green here. Not my favorite pick, I'll admit that, but he was one of the most consistent receivers in football for the last decade. So there is a lot to be said with the name AJ Green.
All right, I believe that rounds out this 16 round draft, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Let me see. I'll look at ask this guy if we're going 16 or 18. Well, the draft is still okay. He said we will go to 18.
Okay.
So we still have a couple of picks left. Well, where do we want to go? We can experiment here.
All right, you pick one guy and I will pick one guy. So you go first.
Right. Well, what would complete this team? I don't like any of the running backs, but maybe we just stash a running back on there for fun. And there's 4 running backs to choose from. That is elite stuff.
Why are there 4 running backs?
I don't know. There are not many quarterbacks either. So it looks like receiver might be the way to go. It's interesting, I have to say. Very interesting. But
there are only 4 more running backs in the NFL at this point.
Well, I'm gonna go with my guy Nico Collins here.
I figured you would go there. Not a bad pickup. I think he's gonna have an opportunity this season, simply for the fact that Houston Texans wide receiver core is not good. They have obviously they have Brandon Cooks as the number 1. They still have Randall Cobb there, and that is it. So
yeah, Nico Collins is going to be able to compete for the red zone targets. It's going to Nico Collins reminds me of Andre Johnson. And for those of you who don't remember who Andre Johnson was, he was also a 6'3", 6'4", 220-ish pound receiver who played his entire career for the Texans. So maybe the Texans found a gem in Nico Collins here. I like his physical attributes. I'm not sure if he has like afterburner speed or whatever, but that doesn't matter. If he can catch the ball, help out whoever the quarterback is, I think he'll be a very serviceable bench player for you.
You should click on the quarterbacks for me.
Well, you have
you
have 6 quarterbacks to pick from.
Let's go. All right. Yeah, all these quarterbacks make me want to barf, so we're not going to go there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Are there more running backs now on the list, or is there still just 4?
Oh, I guess. Oh, wait, they're down. Where did they come from? Hold on, let me see if there's more quarterbacks. Yeah, there's more quarterbacks too. That's interesting. Well, I don't know why Sleeper did that. But look at all these running backs who are now entering the league.
All right, let's check out tight end.
Oh, there's Brevin Jordan.
Ooh, yes. Give me Brevin Jordan. That's my selection. I want him.
How do I cue this motherfucker? Oh, I had to click this button.
It's very odd that it split up like that.
Yeah. I have to put an ad in there. But, so Taylor, we're winding it down this draft. What are your thoughts about how this draft in particular went? What sort of strategies are you going to be able to pull from this to help your own leagues this year?
So I think that we've been able to see that at the end of the day, running back is very, very important to get early, because as we witnessed here, if you don't get running backs, at least 2 of them in the first 3 rounds, you are in a very bad position, because it ends up in a situation where you're going to get a running back in a split carry system where he's only going to get 50% of the looks. Okay. And we've also noticed that wide receiver is very deep this year, very, very deep. And you will be able to find talent no matter where or when you are in the draft. So wide receiver is a position where you need to get at least one top-notch receiver, just one, and then you can kind of fill out your roster from there. And then on top of that, tight ends. Tight ends are very important to get early. And if you miss out on the first couple, wait. That's what we did. We waited because there was no point in grabbing a tight end who is going to end up with 160 points when you can get a running back that ends up with 300 points.
Yep. And if you want to sort of figure out what we're talking about, check out our ADP MVP podcast with Clinic Cap. It was a great podcast talking about the value of certain positions and how you need to approach their value in terms of their ADP, their production, when you go to draft them.
Yeah. Speaking of drafting, let's go ahead and finish out our team with Brevin Jordan here. And then I think that for those that are wondering why Brevin Jordan is the pick, another Houston player, is because the simple fact that I think he is the most athletically gifted tight end coming out of this draft class who is not named Kyle Pitts. Okay, I think that he has great ability after the catch to make people miss. And I talked about him a lot this offseason already. So for those of you that are curious, go check out our podcast to listen in a little bit more as to why I like Brevin Jordan and I like his opportunity out there in Houston.
Yeah, Brevin Jordan really has the potential to solidify a role from his rookie year on. You know, Houston really hasn't had a great stretch of tight ends in its history. The last
Owen Daniels was the last great tight end.
Where I was going. So Taylor, the draft is over. Let's take a look at our team here. So we started off hot with Pat Mahomes in the first, given that it is a Superflex league. Moved on with Cam Akers and then Deandre Swift back-to-back. How do you think these sophomore running backs are going to perform this season?
I really like Deandre. I ever since We actually had Chris on the podcast. For those of you that didn't get to listen to that episode, Chris is one of our guests we had recently on the podcast who he mentioned Deandre Swift when we were talking about different players who could bust out this year and put us over the top. And he mentioned him as a guy who really has a good ample opportunity. And I think that Deandre Swift is, the more and more I listen to it, and Clinic also mentioned him as well. I think that says a lot about the fact that, all these guys are raising him up in their draft rankings for a reason. And then on top of that, I think that he's really talented when it comes to catching the ball out of the backfield. And yes, they signed Jamal Williams from Green Bay, but at the end of the day, where do the running backs score points? It's catching the football out of the backfield nowadays. Yep. And so he is the guy who's going to be doing that. Jamal Williams isn't going to be catching the football out of the backfield. It's going to be all Deandre Swift. So Deandre Swift is the man when out there in Detroit. And I think that he's also going to be the number two or three target on that offense. Other than TJ Hawkinson, they don't really have a whole lot else to throw the football to. So he's going to immediately become a number 2 or 3 target on that team. And that says a lot for a running back.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the sophomore running backs because there's a lot of talent. Jonathan Taylor, Akers, J.K. Dobbins. We could see
Antonio Gibson.
Yes, we can see a second wave. The 2017 draft class, right? Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, James Conner, Aaron Jones. All of these guys are great in the NFL now. I think we're seeing a second 2017 draft right here, right now.
And what's interesting? Everyone that talked for a long time after the Adrian Petersons and stuff like that came out, and for a few seasons thereafter, everyone was saying, the running backs are dead. The running back position is going to die. That's the next fullback in the NFL. You're wrong. Running backs are not dead. They've just changed a little bit. It's no longer these big, bulky running backs who just bowl people over. It's athletic guys who can make people miss now. And that is what they are at the running back position. It's not dead. It's just evolved.
Yeah. So I think our approach to receiver really paid off here because we got very established guys in the league, with the exception of Nico Collins. We got established receivers in the league who are proven to put up points week in and week out. How do you think we grade our receivers?
I would probably grade the receiver core as a whole probably a B+. Simply because we don't have the top heavy talent. We do have, obviously, the Allen Robinson and Adam Thielen duo is really nice. But outside of that, because we have so many flex positions, it was hard to necessarily grade it as top notch. I think B+, maybe A- even, because I kind of forgot we had the double Adam Thielen and Allen Robinson at the top. That's a nice duo to have when it comes to just catching passes. They are PPR machines is what those guys are. And they score a decent amount of touchdowns. Adam Thielen led the NFL in touchdowns through the first half of the season.
I think at the end of the day, it's unless you are playing in a devout Superflex league where quarterbacks run off the board in the first round, I think you still have to go with a running back. Now, like we said earlier, this is a mock. You are trying stuff out. But at the end of the day, I think we might be looking at our roster in a completely different fashion had we not taken Mahomes. Now, Mahomes is great, and Mahomes can win you weeks. Absolutely. He can go out by himself and win you fantasy games. But maybe there's points lost taking Mahomes where there may be a disparity of like 100 points spread out between a running back and a receiver where they might elevate you as well.
Yeah, and that's one of those things you got to look at when it comes to the ADP. Obviously, like a prime example, what if we just, instead of taking Mahomes, we took a different running back and ended up with stayed with Russell Wilson as our quarterback later, and you ended up with a guy like a Jonathan Taylor or something there. And then all of a sudden, our draft looks completely different. Yeah.
Like let's say we went with Jonathan Taylor at 7, we go Taylor at 7. Now we can't predict what else happens, but maybe DeAndre Hopkins is available, or maybe maybe we go with Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs or something like that. It's the risk you're willing to take when you draft a quarterback. So if this was not a Superflex league, don't expect us to take a quarterback in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah, when it comes to standard leagues and really anything that is not Superflex, we like to wait on quarterback because at the end of the day, the quarterback 1 versus the quarterback 10, there is a huge discrepancy in terms of where they end up finishing. You know, a quarterback who was drafted 10 could finish 2, and a quarterback drafted 2 could finish 10. And we saw that when we talked a little bit about the ADP of the last season or two. That happened with the Ryan Tannehill, or not the Ryan Tannehill, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson combo. You know, one was drafted. What?
Yeah. So I was about to say, Taylor, Russell Wilson was drafted 9th in this draft. QB 9. Russell Wilson has the potential to finish as a top 3 guy. You take a look, Herbert drafted number 8. Matt Stafford 10. Rodgers 11. You can't tell me that these guys aren't going to finish above where they were drafted. Stafford is maybe the only one in question, but Rodgers is fresh off an MVP season. Justin Herbert is primed for a huge sophomore season. Russell Wilson was leading the league in passing up until midpoint of the season. So it's one of the things you have to take into account when drafting quarterbacks. How does their ADP affect the rest of your team?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you can only start in most leagues, unless this is super flex, you can only start 1. So, drafting him early kind of hurts your team at the end of the day, because you can always wait on a guy, draft a guy who has a top 3 or 4 potential, okay, and drafting them much later. Drafting a running back who has top 3 or 4 potential is so much more difficult than drafting a quarterback who has top 3 or 4 potential. Yep. Because a running back who has top 3 or 4 potential, they're pretty much gone after the first round or 2.
They're gone after the first 5 picks.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much.
So I think at the end of the day, more of the story, if it's not Superflex, wait on the quarterback. But Taylor, I know you and I will get into this more during the draft season. It's getting to be that time. Tomorrow starts the new month of July, so we're starting to see some dynasty startup leagues start to happen. Best ball drafts are happening. So get your mock drafts in, draft as much as you can, because it's great practice for when the real deal happens. You can go and win the draft. You don't win the league, you win the draft.
Exactly. And I think that real quick here, this is probably going to wrap up well, it's not a podcast. This is so weird. I'm so used to saying wrap up the podcast. All right. But this is going to wrap up this stream here on StreamYard, on YouTube as well, because we're going to be excited to bring you guys a little bit more content actually on our YouTube channel. We're obviously expected to bring back the YouTube series, and we're looking for different ways to bring it back and different things to feature. So if you guys have any ideas or something you would like to see on our YouTube channel versus just listening to the podcast, let us know. I have some ideas of my own. Parker, I'm sure, does as well. We'll figure that out as the time comes. And then also the rest. Thank you. Nice stream. Thank you. Also, the rest of this month of July is going to be leading into fantasy draft season. Okay. So what that means is look out for, especially towards the end of July, we're going to start talking rankings. We're going to be getting out our rankings towards the end of July, early August, have those all out for you like we do every single season. And that is where you guys can, if you guys are interested, okay, we're actually going to be giving out our rankings in the actual format, like in a Google document or something like that for specific individuals. We'll give you guys more information as it gets closer to that time. But for right now, we are looking forward to getting back onto the YouTube scene and continuing with the podcasting. Thank you guys for listening. I'm going to throw it over to Parker to finish it out.
All right, Taylor. Well, thanks for joining me here on our first live stream here back on our YouTube channel. We didn't do live streams when we had our YouTube channel originally, but I think this is a great entrance back onto the YouTube scene. So if you're looking to see more of our faces, we need some ideas. We're not going to be bringing back the 5-minute videos per se, that we in the same format. We're still going to do videos around 5 minutes because that's our calling card. But we are devoting the starts and sits and everything to our podcast, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, tons of different platforms. So search us on there. Follow us on Twitter at FantasyFball and 5. It's number 5 at the end of the handle. And we're still looking for listeners for our list, or excuse me, we're still looking for players for our listener league. Yes, some spots to fill. Maybe have 2 leagues this year. We're hoping. So for Taylor, I am Parker. This was Fantasy Football in 5. Thanks again, YouTube. It was great to be back here, and we'll see you next time.